Okay, so we're going to finish off Chapter 3 with Section 3.5, and in this section we're finding the length of a triangle side. So in Section 3.4, we are finding an angle inside the triangle, and now we're going to be finding the length on the outside. So what I want you to notice is that the very first 3 steps of this process are almost the exact same, except for this little piece here replacing the A with the angle in triangle. So step 1, we're going to label the sides of our triangle. Here is the hypotenuse. Now you'll notice that there's no angle symbol in this one, but there is a number and a degree. So this is the angle right here. So if it helps, you can write a little angle sign right there. So that means that this will be the adjacent and this will be the opposite. Now you're going to circle the 10 and the adjacent, and you'll notice that there's not another number on the outside. However, there is an X, so I want you to circle that one as well. So we have the opposite and we have the adjacent. If we look on our formula sheet, you'll notice that we have tan A equals X over 10. Now here is where it's a bit different from section 3.4, because I want you to replace the A with the angle in the triangle. So that means we're going to replace the A with 27 degrees. Now step 4 is we are going to put a 1 under the sine, cos, or tan. So that means we put a 1 right there. And our final step is to cross multiply and divide. So this goes back to chapter 2, where we were converting units. And here's where the X is. So we are going to be cross multiplying the 10 and the tan 27 and dividing by 1. So at this point I'll get out my calculator and I'm going to go 27 tan times 10 divided by 1. So 5.09. So we can just say that that is very close to 5. So a couple things that I want you to notice. When I got my calculator out, I want you to notice that I did not use the tan minus 1 that I used in the last section. I just used the tan. And that's going to be what we're using when we're finding the length of a side. The other thing that I want you to notice is that even though it was tan and then the 27, when I used this calculator, I had to put the 27 in first and then click the tan. So I know it's a bit confusing, but once you get into a habit of doing it, it's very easy. Let's try another one. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is label the triangle. This will be my hypotenuse. This will be my adjacent and my opposite. The next thing I'm going to do is circle the 8 and circle the X. So I'm working with the opposite and the hypotenuse. So sine A. So please keep in mind that I'm not going to be writing the a. Instead, I'm going to be writing the 46. And it's going to be 8 over x. Now the next step, I'm going to put a 1 underneath the sign. And my final step is to cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to cross multiply the 8 and the 1, and then I'm going to divide by sine 46. So 8 times 1 divided by, now here's where it gets confusing, remember, the 46 goes first, and then the sine. Now what I have to remember is that I have to click equals afterwards. So it's 11.1, so we can just say that that is 11. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, so in this one, I want you to start off by labeling your triangle. So go ahead and pause the video and label it. Alright. So it should look something like this. And the next step is I want you to figure out which fraction we're going to use, and then I want you to make sure that you replace the a with the 39 degrees. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have the 7 for the hypotenuse and the x for the adjacent. So we will be using cos for this one. So instead of the a, I'm going to write 39 degrees. And then I will have x over 7. So of course my next step is to put a 1 underneath the cos 39 and cross multiply and divide. So I'd like you to pause the video and go ahead and cross multiply and divide. Alright, so we're going to cross multiply the cos 39 and the 7 and divide by 1. So please keep in mind I put the 39 first and then the cos, and then I times it by 7 and divide by 1 equals 5.44. Okay. So if on your answer sheet that you put 5.44, or if you put 5, I will accept both. Let's try last one. Alright, so I want you to do step number 1, to label the triangle. Go ahead and pause the video and do that. Okay, so we have the hypotenuse and the adjacent and the opposite. I realize now that each of these examples that I've done in this lesson, the adjacent has been on the bottom here, but please keep in mind that that's not always the case. if the angle was up here, then this side would be the adjacent. Okay? Alright, so now I would like you to make your fraction. So figure out which sides we have, the opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse, and figure out if we're going to use sine, cos, or tan. So go ahead and pause the video and figure that out. Okay, so we have the 10 and the x. So we are going to be using tan. Now, I would like you to write out our fraction and put a 1 underneath the tan. So go ahead and pause the video and do that. So tan 25 degrees equals opposite over adjacent, and I'll put a 1 underneath. Now my final step will be to cross multiply and divide. So go ahead and do that. Alright, so I'm going to multiply the tan 25 and the 10. So 25 tan times 10 divided by 1, and 4.66. Now, I would accept x equals 4.66 or x equals 5, because 4.66 is closer to 5 than it is 4. Okay, so I would like you to complete chapter 3.5 homework, and a piece of special information: 3 questions on the chapter quiz will be similar to the homework questions.